Welcome to Rehash, a Web3 podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to our very first episode of Rehash, a Web3 podcast. I'm your host, Diana Chen, and in this episode, we'll be talking all about DeFi trends, the Ethereum merge, proof of work versus proof of stake, and much more with DeFi YouTuber and educator Kris Kay, aka Defi Donut. Welcome, Kris. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Glad to be here.
Before we dive into all things DeFi, can you just give our listeners who don't know you yet a little bit of a background into who you are, where you come from, and how you initially fell down the crypto rabbit hole?
Yeah, for sure. Basically, like quick background about me, I actually have a computer science degree, which I didn't really use much. I used it for 1 year after I graduated. I got a programming job right out of college and did that for a year. Didn't like it at all, so I just quit. And luckily enough, that was like mid 2017 when I quit, right before, the crazy bull run, which, the stars just aligned. But basically after I quit, I didn't really have any plan. Obviously, like that bull run started happening months after. And that's when I got into crypto, but not like Web3, because there really wasn't like any DeFi or Web3 back then, right? It was like buy low, sell high. And, I tried to do that the best I can back then. Sometimes I bought high and sold low, unfortunately, but all in all, it was like a good intro to crypto. But what really got me started was DeFi Summer. And for those of you that don't know what that is, I kind of feel sorry for you because that was a really fun time. Jokes aside though, so DeFi Summer was basically the retroactive label we put on the summer of 2020, which is when just a bunch of stuff started happening in the DeFi world. Essentially how I got into that rabbit hole. I remember I was on the beach. I was out in Europe on vacation, and my friends were in the water. Everybody was playing volleyball, and I had been hearing about staking, lending, and all this weird stuff going on in crypto. So I took it upon myself. I put a shirt over my head, and I was just laying down, and for a good 2 hours I literally was on my phone just reading up on staking, what compound is, why are some of my coins that I'm holding going up a lot, right? And it was because people were just trying to get free comp tokens and trying to farm and lend their crypto and all that stuff. So yeah, after that was over, I was took a deep breath. I lifted the shirt off my head and I was damn, it's bright out here. I don't know, I was in a time warp. And yeah, ever since then, that was the first domino that kind of started the domino effect for me. And every day I've just kind of been in that rabbit hole. And I'm sure you and everybody else knows this space doesn't sleep. I don't really sleep much either, because since that day almost 2 years ago, I've just been learning every day, trying to keep up with all this madness. So that's kind of my story.
I, on the other hand, need a lot of sleep, so it forces me to really make the best use of my waking hours. Just because you called this out earlier, you said that you fell into crypto back in 2017 when there wasn't really Web3. I think some people still get confused about these two different terms being thrown around. And I've asked a bunch of people to sort of explain what the difference is between crypto and Web3, and everyone seems to have their own definition of it. So when you say that, what do you mean by crypto versus Web3?
So like I said before, the early days of crypto, it was just, we had these coins that everybody thought is going to be the next currency, but they also go up and down in price. So, everybody was trying to make a buck. And that's all that really is. While the blockchain is super innovative, right? Bitcoin is actually super, super innovative, how the whole consensus model and everything, but there just wasn't anything built on top of it. So we discovered new land, but there wasn't anything built on it. And that's what 2009 to 2016, 17 was. It was just this new land we're kind of just trying to wrap our minds around. But Web3 and DeFi is, the next level. So if I had to explain DeFi in a high level overview sentence, it's basically we're taking the traditional platforms of finance, stock markets, banks, all that stuff, and we're kind of migrating it onto the blockchain. And the reason is because building those things on the blockchain makes them not only transparent, which is awesome, but they turn into money Legos, which is a term we love to use, because all these different apps, platforms, blockchains kind of can stack on top of each other. Basically, HTML allowed us to customize the internet in the 90s. And the blockchain is allowing us to customize finance in the 2020s. And that's what's happening. We're seeing it evolve so quick because there's no gates, right? In traditional finance, everything's closed on the weekends. There's working hours. There's, all these guidelines and stuff. But this is the wild, wild west in a good way because developers can like take it upon themselves, take existing apps, take a lending app like Aave, then a DEX like Uniswap, stack those up, and then build their platform or whatever on top of those. And then somebody else can come along and copy paste that code, which is not frowned upon really, and make it better. So it's like this Ferris wheel of like constant innovation. And that's kind of what Web3 or DeFi is really, I think.
Yeah, gotcha. So let's take a step back. You said a lot of things there, and I think people listening who aren't as familiar with DeFi probably got lost in some of the stuff that you were talking about. So let's just take a step back, start from the beginning, because I know you're super passionate about DeFi education and you do a really good job of explaining DeFi in really basic terms. So give us like the Eli 5, explain it like I'm 5 version of what is DeFi. Like this is how you would explain it to your grandma. And I know you actually have a page of like, this is like for my grandma sort of thing. So explain it to your grandma.
DeFi is kind of like tough to explain to like a literal grandma unless, they use it. I think the goal of DeFi is for people not to even need to know what it is, but not technically. It is, like I said, a permissionless, open finance, borderless ecosystem where you're kind of responsible for your own money. We like to say be your own bank because like when you open up a crypto wallet, nobody can really go into your wallet or tell you, today it's Sunday, you can't send funds or something like that. You can't receive funds. It's kind of like a self-sovereign financial system, which has no borders, right? So if I want to send money to a friend or somebody I'm doing business with on the other side of the world at 2 a.m. on a Sunday, I can do that, right? If I want to use my DeFi bank, right, something like Aave, which I don't know how many people are aware of that, but I can do that, right? I can take a loan against my crypto investments at any time of the day without signing one paperwork. So I think the best way to describe DeFi is like this open finance, permissionless system. It's kind of like self-regulated, if that makes sense.
Yeah, break that down a little bit more. So, I'm thinking about somebody who is so used to our traditional finance system. If I need to, transact money, I go to the bank. I guess like paint the picture of how we would go about our day-to-day lives and all the financial transactions that we need to make in our day-to-day lives through DeFi instead of through our traditional financial system.
Yeah, I think the easiest like concept to grasp is just simple money transacting. Not too long ago, I was sending money through my bank, right? Because that's what that business only accepted, like wires. So I had to go to my bank, my physical branch, and spend a good 45 minutes there, signing a couple papers, waiting for the person to type whatever he's typing on the computer, print a couple papers for me to sign, just to send a couple $1,000s, right? So, I think that in itself, if that business were accepting crypto, I could have saved 99.99% of that time. I could literally just send them the payment through, crypto wallet to wallet, and it's done with, right? It's public. There's a public link that anybody can see our transaction, so it's verifiable that it came from my wallet. I can prove that I own my wallet, so it removes all the friction, right? You won't really understand the value prop of like decentralized finance unless you've had run-ins like that with traditional finance. So I think the forefront of it all is like that simple transaction layer of just sending money peer-to-peer. I think that's where all this really started, right? Bitcoin, peer-to-peer currency and all that. So I think that's like the basic use case that anybody would kind of, be able to wrap their head around.
Yeah, for sure. And then one thing that I heard too early on that like kind of made it click for me was international money transfers. So like if you've got family overseas or you need to send money overseas for whatever reason, crypto makes it even faster than like what you're already talking about. And then, if you're talking about like certain countries that have unstable governments that are sort of like screwing over their people with the money that they're holding in their bank accounts, I mean, that's like a whole other use case where we're not just talking about speeding up a transaction and saving you like a 2-hour trip to the bank, which like for sure is frustrating, but it's actually helping you like be able to like have a livelihood and make sure that all the money you've saved over the course of your life and worked hard for isn't just going down the drain because there's like political instability in your country.
Exactly. Yeah. We're seeing that play out in a couple of places, being at mercy to your government. Like if they decide to print a bunch of money, right? It's inflating all of it and making yours like less valuable. So I think most recently, obviously, we're seeing like the bank runs happening in Russia, right? People are trying to hit the ATMs, banks, everything to just kind of get their money out because the ruble is like just plummeting. So a lot of people can't because when a bank run happens, that's the whole downside to it. A lot of people can't get their money out. So it's not about just transacting. It's just about, like I said, self sovereignty. Really, the kind of motto of Bitcoin is, or the blockchain is like, don't trust, verify. So we don't want to like put our funds, our net worth, our livelihood in the hands of like a central entity, I guess, if that's a way to put it. So yeah, there's a lot of use cases and we could go into them, but like I think like those two alone are just like enough of a value proposition for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So looking back into since 2017, when you first got into crypto and DeFi, what are some trends that you've seen in DeFi over time as we've gone on? And then like, what are some trends you're seeing today? And I'd love to hear like if you think, there's a certain reason for certain trends to rise up at certain times, and like, why do you think we're in the state of DeFi that we're in today?
Yeah. So I think the first trend that kind of kickstarted this whole thing is the yield farming that kind of happened in summer 2020. And yield farming is the same as you earning air miles while spending your money on your credit card, right? It's a marketing budget that a DeFi app has set forth to reward depositors or people that use their app. So basically people saw it as free money, and it really is, right? It's like a marketing budget that every treasury is like willing to give out. And we saw people being paid to take out loans. It's all this stuff that like doesn't really make sense because we've never really heard of it. And that's what kind of like started all this craze. So I think that was like the first trend of like DeFi that played out. There's been many, and trends aren't necessarily a bad thing. The yield farming thing can be a good way to like bootstrap, liquidity or get people to like acquire users. So I'm not implying that every trend that we talk about is like over with and we'll never see that again. It has like no merit. But after that, obviously NFTs, which I think NFTs are DeFi, right? Because everything that happens in the blockchain, I think, is kind of held up by the beams of DeFi. If you want to trade NFTs, you need to swap coins or all that stuff, use OpenSea, all that. But NFTs kind of took over very quickly at the beginning of 2021, right after the yield farming. It was still going strong, but yeah, NFTs took over and that led into the summer. Then the whole metaverse thing happened. But as far as like DeFi specifically, obviously we saw the Olympus DAO thing kind of, they try to innovate, and I think it's smart. It may have merit still. The whole, instead of yield farming, they were like, all right, what if we don't want to inflate our native token, and we set up this like bond system to sell our token, and the treasury can keep ownership and not just inflate the token. So I think that was a trend that maybe has some merit to it, actually. Obviously, it was like copy pasted so much that it wasn't good. It wasn't really good because of all the copy paste. But yeah, there's been a ton of trends. I'm not sure if there's any specific ones that you want to talk about or I'm missing, but
No, I thought it was interesting that you called out how like NFTs were a trend in DeFi, because I think a lot of people don't think about it like that. And I think that might be a result of like the NFT community just seems so different from the DeFi community. And it seems like most people who've gotten into this space in general in the last like 6 months to a year, like have really gotten into it for more of like the community or cultural aspect than for, maybe like some of the reasons that why people got in back in 2017 or earlier. So yeah, that was interesting that you called that out. I agree. Like everything, NFTs, DAOs, everything have DeFi under layers. So you kind of have to understand like those basic concepts of DeFi in order to really like get into any trend or any facet of this like Web3 world.
yeah, I see that a lot. How the NFT community is like, it seems so different from like the DeFi community. And it is like something that I think is overall good because it's bringing a lot of people into the space. And I've seen a lot of people, come to me and say, I started with like trying to flip NFTs, but, I ran into your content and, now I'm out earning my bank with my, crypto savings and doing this and doing that. So yeah, I definitely think DeFi is the core base layer for all this stuff happening, no doubt.
I think like one way I've heard it characterized like as one of the major differences between the DeFi community and the NFT community is that the NFT community is a lot more open to newcomers coming in. And so they're a lot more passionate about like education and like the things that you do. But like you do all of that on the DeFi side. It's like you come from this like DeFi community, which a lot of newcomers see as a little hostile maybe or not welcoming to outsiders. You focus so much on educating people and like bringing in new people that like that almost is like a totally different vibe from like the traditional DeFi sort of vibe.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, and I don't know if this will get backlash or not, but the NFT community right now, from all of 2021, is just people flipping profile pictures, right? There's not much to it. So it's a lower barrier to entry, right? If a new person comes in, they're like, oh yeah, like welcome, check out every NFT that I own, come buy some too, so my holdings can go up. So as far as DeFi, you got a lot of like passionate builders who have been in this space for years and grinding when everybody said it's all a scam, it's stupid. So I can see that there's like way more passion in DeFi because there's actually people that, researchers, analysts, programmers, just community advocates, whatever. But as far as like NFTs, it just seems like a completely different, like kind of beginner friendly type of vibe just because there's like not much to it. And I think that's what really separates it. So yeah, I definitely, I agree with you that it seems like two different worlds. And it's just because right now NFTs are simple. There's really not much to it. So I don't even know what they talk about all day. Like it's just I tried to like get into the NFT community, not really, but I kind of stepped over just to see what's going on, and I was like, how do you guys not get bored? Like I get the allure. Like I own a CryptoPunk and like a couple NFTs, but I just can't spend all day just trying to find the next profile picture that is dropping at the right time with the right influencers behind it so that it just takes off. It's cool. I'm happy for everybody making a lot of money, but I'm excited to get to the cooler stuff of NFTs as far as, metaverses, play to earn, all that really cool stuff. So
Yeah, there definitely is so much potential that has yet to be unlocked. Like right now, people are still stuck on this like 10K PFP projects for NFTs, and NFT has like so much potential beyond that. Switching gears a little bit, something else I wanted to ask you about is this Ethereum merge that everybody's talking about nowadays. So this is a bit of a scary, yeah, there you go, rep in the logo. I think this is a bit of a scary topic, especially for beginners in the space, because it can be quite technical. So with the Ethereum merge coming up, ETH 2.0, can you just break that down for us and maybe start from the beginning? First of all, I think in order to understand this at all, you have to understand what proof of work is and what proof of stake is and how they're different. So maybe we start there.
yeah, so I just made like a 30-minute video on this, so I'm pretty sure I can touch on all these points. But after you guys finish this, I recommend you search up DeFi Donut on YouTube and just check out the video because it's literally all there. It's a pretty lengthy topic that I kind of condensed. So basically, proof of work just means the security of the chain comes from electricity, like the most basic form. But I'm going to keep this like high level just because it can get intimidating and scary, like you said, just because there's so many things going on. Right now, if you want to, take part in securing the network or making money, you can buy like a graphics card, a piece of hardware, and use it to start mining Ethereum, right? And what you're basically doing is you're helping the network. Right now, the network is, we call it decentralized because there's a lot of different miners like that all over the world, right? Doing the same thing. And they're keeping Ethereum trustless by sending every transaction that goes through to, different miners, making sure that they all agree that this transaction is correct. And once that consensus happens, it gets sent off to the blockchain to, be ingrained. So right now, that's how the whole blockchain works. It's different miners like that are using, all that electricity to kind of keep the network up, right? That's why Ethereum doesn't really go down. There's just like countless of people all over the world doing this, and they're essentially the current security guards of the network. So that's proof of work, right? A lot of people's criticism on it is that miners don't really have skin in the game. You can go out and buy hardware and own 0 Ethereum and start, getting rewarded in Ethereum. And then you have to pay off these electricity bills. And obviously your hardware, you got to recoup those costs. So you're kind of economically forced to sell that Ethereum or whatever it is you're mining to, you kind of start dumping it, right? As soon as it comes in, you dump it for profit. So that creates a lot of sell pressure, right? Proof of stake is the complete opposite. So you can run this actually on like a pretty regular computer. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars on like hardware or like fancy graphics cards. You can set it up on like a regular computer. You just have to leave it running 24/7. But the difference here is you need Ethereum to kind of prove that you have skin in the game. And the reason it's called proof of stake is because the metaphor that I use is if you have two different banks, right, with two different security guards, would you prefer that the security guard protecting your money also has their money in that bank or that vault? Or would you prefer them not to have any of their money? So if there's like a fire or somebody comes to them like, hey, I want to cut you in, we're going to rob the bank. Do you think they're less likely to do that if they have their own money in there? My answer is yes. Like I want my security guards to have skin in the game. So that's kind of what proof of stake is. All these security guards are held accountable, and if there's any bad actors, their stake that they're using to mine can be slashed, so they know like that's the penalty. And that kind of creates a whole new atmosphere for the blockchain. Not to mention that when we switch to proof of stake, the annual supply or annual issuance of Ethereum coins is going to go down drastically. That's just the nature of it. But yeah, there's a lot to it, but that's basically the two models.
Yeah, I think you did a really good job. I think that analogy of the bank security guards too was really good. I haven't heard that one before, but that's like a very effective way of explaining it to somebody who doesn't know about this stuff.
Yeah, it's super interesting because like so much things are going to change as far as like less sell pressure and aside from like price go up, right? Obviously, I just think it's healthier. Electricity costs, right, is going down by like 99%. I'm sure people push the whole eco-friendly narrative, which that's a good bonus as well. But allowing anybody to set up a computer, or if you don't have, by the way, to set up that computer at home and stake, you need 32 ETH, which some would say, that's a lot of money. Isn't that kind of gatekeeping or whatever? But there's also liquid staking and services like Rocket Pool, which allow you to set up a validator with just 16 ETH. And if you're liquid staking, you can just use like 1 or 2 or 0.1 ETH, doesn't really matter. So there's definitely options. And yeah, I may be biased, but I think it's a better model overall because it just promotes that skin in the game mentality for the security guards and just everybody all together. So
Yeah, can you explain real quick what liquid staking is?
yeah, so basically how it works is if I have ETH in my crypto wallet, all I would need to do is exchange it for staked ETH, right? It's again another just coin that goes into your wallet, but now you're kind of swapping, right? So you're giving custody of your ETH to somebody like Lido Finance or Rocket Pool, and you're getting back staked ETH. And that staked ETH coin in your wallet, you don't have to do anything. It just automatically grows every 24 hours, right? So you're getting those staking rewards just by your balance growing. So you don't have to do any hardware setups, nothing like that. It's literally hands-free. And on top of that, that coin that's in your wallet, the staked ETH coin, now becomes a money Lego. So you can deposit it into a lending platform and borrow against it while still getting those rewards. And it's a really cool model or category that's growing super fast right now and just making things way easier and adding a lot of money back into DeFi in general.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So with the Ethereum merge then going to ETH 2.0, the biggest change that's happening there is that we're going from a proof of work to a proof of stake model. Is there anything else part of that merge that people should know about?
Yeah, so I kind of forgot to mention this, but Ethereum 2.0 is kind of a name that the Ethereum community has stepped away from just because a lot of people got the vibes that it's just like one update that's going to happen and everything's all good, right? But it's actually a roadmap with, I think, 3 major milestones. And the first one is the beacon chain, which, probably doesn't mean anything to you guys, but essentially it's laying down that new railroad for Ethereum, the new and improved one right next to it, right? So that's the beacon chain. The merge is when the Ethereum train kind of, transitions and goes over to the new railroad and that old one gets deprecated. Like we do away with that. So that's the merge happening hopefully this summer, right? the train is like switching to a new railroad. So that I think is the most important, most significant one. But I think at the end of the roadmap is just some more scaling stuff, if I'll put it that way. Just some stuff to kind of scale, increase block space, make more room for more transactions. It's not going to completely make fees like free or anything, but it's pretty technical stuff. Even though I have like a CS background, even I like don't want to get into it. But yeah, it's ETH 2.0 is kind of like this roadmap, not just like one update. And the merge, which is the next on the list, is I think, yeah, I would say it's like the most significant, just because it's a lot. You're moving like this $100 billion train onto like a new platform, and it's like, all right, we got to make sure we get this right.
Your analogies are so good. Thank you for explaining that. Clearly you do this for a living, I can tell. Last question about the Ethereum merge. So A, like when exactly is this merge supposed to happen? And B, how is it going to affect the way that crypto users interact with DeFi or with like apps out there?
So while there's no exact date, and I understand this because I come from a programming background, and I know that when you have a project, especially of this size, landing on a specific date is the worst thing you can do, because you never know. The first 90% of the code takes 10% of the time. The last 10% of the code takes 90% of the time. It's always like that. So testing, all that stuff takes a long time. I feel like the consensus is that this summer, 2022, whether that's June, July, or August, I'm not sure, is when this merge will likely happen. They're already testing it on like test nets, and they've had like a couple successful merges actually already happen on these test nets. So the progress is definitely there. There is no like promised date, at least yet. So we'll see. But I have confidence that this summer, whether it's early or late summer, it will get done. The good thing is that it probably won't affect anything. The thing that Coinbase did wrong is they introduced an ETH2 coin. Like they made it seem like it's a completely new coin, right? So that got a lot of people kind of mixed up, and they're like, all right, well, I need to like migrate or switch. What do I need to do? But the reality is you don't need to do anything. The coin is staying the same, just stuff under the hood is changing. So luckily, we don't need to worry about any of that. I don't really think it's going to change much. I think what will change is the liquid staking category, which is becoming huge already. I think Lido Finance is number 2 as far as total value locked. And that's like the liquid staking, the major liquid staking platform, which I think it's at like $17-18 billion already behind Curve, I believe. So because, like I said, the staked coins, liquid staked coins are becoming a money Lego, everybody's starting to use them in DeFi in safe, risky, and degen ways, unfortunately. So they're like leverage staking, they're providing liquidity, they're doing all kinds of things, and we're seeing it play out. All of these DeFi apps are integrating, staked ETH, staked Matic, whatever it is, all these liquid stake coins. And I think that's gonna bring a whole bunch of new capital into the space, because we can't tokenize our Bitcoin miners that are sitting in a warehouse and bring that onto like on chain. So this is like a really cool pocket that's opening up, and I think that's the only thing that really will change is just more liquidity, more capital, stuff like that.
All good things. Yeah, and it's probably a good thing that it won't really change too much for users, because I feel like crypto's already confusing enough as it is. We don't need to throw more wrenches in there. So when you look ahead to the future of DeFi, then, if all goes well, however you define that, where do you hope to see DeFi in, let's say, 5 years?
Oof, that's tough, just because I think crypto years are like dog years, really. And I feel like the last 2 years have been like 10 years. So I'm scared to make predictions. Hopefully DeFi is in a place where there's way better UX and user interface, because we all know that's like the big struggle right now. Hopefully there's just less friction, more user friendly. The main goal is for the real world to kind of start accepting crypto payments. I think that's like a big step, because we don't need to cash out our crypto and send it to Coinbase, then send it to the bank, and then spend that money. We can just directly interact. And I think that's going to be a big game changer, even though it's like the first thing that really crypto sought out to achieve, right? But I feel like we kind of forgot about that just because there's so much things going on. But hopefully in 5 years, I can open up my MetaMask, my Ledger, whatever crypto wallet we're using, and buy a car in 2 seconds. Not really have to sign any countless paperwork or anything like that. I just hope it creates a truly like frictionless and easy to use financial system, or it kind of improves the current one.
Yeah, for sure. And then not to be a Debbie Downer, but I just like to, especially for newbies listening, I'm like, okay, like all of this, they listen to this podcast and they're like, everything sounds great. Like crypto's the future, DeFi's the future. And I'm like, well, there are negatives as well. So if, say, hypothetically, DeFi were to completely cease to exist in 5 years, why would that be?
That's a good question. The first thing that comes to mind is probably like crazy, illogical regulation. But yeah, I think nothing really stands in the way besides that, just because even that, I don't think it will, because history has shown that technology always wins, right? It doesn't matter, lobbying, all that stuff never lasts, just because people like to take the path that's easier to follow, right? With less branches, less things in the way. I mean, I loved going to Blockbuster as a kid, and it was an experience, but if they were to make a Blockbuster near me today, I'm not going. Like, I prefer my Netflix. So I think DeFi has like opened Pandora's box, and people are realizing, how archaic kind of like our traditional finance system is. And I just don't see a scenario where this goes away completely. That's just my take.
Yeah, that's fair. That's completely fair. And last question for you, for anybody listening who's like completely new to all of this, what are the first things that they should do to get onboarded to DeFi?
That's the sole reason that I made the letsdodefi.com, which is like a free website that I think everybody should go through, just because what you have to understand, and it's super hard. Most people don't make it through this path, just because everybody's like, all right, I'm trying to make some money, right? What's the next 100x? But I think if you really want to last in the space, you got to understand like, what's decentralization? What's a blockchain? What is Ethereum? What is Avalanche? These different, blockchains. And once you understand like those like fundamental terms, then you can move forward and understand what you're investing in, what you're using, what has potential and what doesn't. If you come into crypto or DeFi with just the sole goal of like getting rich in like a week, whether that's through NFTs or whatever, it's most likely that you're going to lose a lot of money. And while that may be a lesson that, most people come into the space, they want to make money. I won't deny that. Even I was like that back in the day. But if you really want to last and make like real money, then you have to understand how it all works, how it all comes together. You can bring a horse to water, whatever that saying is, all you want. And I try to do it on a daily basis, but most people I notice, they just want tell me what's going to make me money. So I would say just learn, try to learn, and don't get caught up in the shiny objects. That's really it, which is easier said than done.
Totally. That is great advice though. Letsdodefi.com. Yeah, highly recommend that as a resource. I just like looked through that, and that's where the thing about like teach your grandma DeFi thing came from. But it's super easy to understand. I love how you just like summarize really big concepts like decentralization or blockchain in 3 sentences. Obviously like there's a lot more to it than that, but I think that at least like makes it feel less scary for people who are coming in. They're like, oh, okay, so these are like the main points of like what decentralization is. That makes me feel a lot more comfortable to then like go deeper down the rabbit hole and like learn more now that I feel like it's not this big scary thing. So highly recommend that as a resource. All right, cool. Kris, before you go, just tell people where they can find you. We've already talked about letsdodefi.com, but how can they find you on Twitter and YouTube and all those other places?
Yeah, so I think I'm most active on Twitter. My handle is the Kris Kay. On Instagram, my handle is kriskay.eth, and that's Kay. My YouTube, Defi Donut, and yeah, those are the 3 places you'll find me the most. So
awesome. Well, thanks again so much for taking the time. I know I learned a lot. I'm gonna cop some of those analogies that you gave in here. I'll credit you, don't worry. But I just thought those are such great ways to like educate people who are new to the space. So keep doing what you're doing. Thanks for taking the time to come on. Thank you everyone for listening, and we'll be back again soon with another episode of the podcast. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Rehash. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to get involved in helping shape next season of the podcast, including nominating and voting on your favorite guests, go to rehash.mirror.xyz to join our crowdfund. And don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe to help us get this podcast heard by as many people as possible. Thanks for being part of this community, and I can't wait to connect with many of you in Discord and Twitter soon.